With Preston on his own now, he heads out to the front deck and notices a Jeep pull up to the cabin across the way from his. 6 girls come out, and they are the most flat, boring characters you will ever see. They have nothing going for them. Honestly, 4 out of the 6 girls meld into one for me. The only reason why I can distinguish 2 of them from the rest, although they both kind of look alike to each other, because one is always on her phone and the other one waves at Preston. Really, it's the only thing of note about the girls. There are 6 of them, and only 2 of them have some sort of defining character trait. There's some weak expositional dialogue where all 6 of them are sitting in a group talking about how one of them is getting married, which never really comes into play with anything else later into the movie. I think it's just to show the relationships between these girls. And honestly, I couldn't tell which one of them was getting married. I feel like that would have been an important detail to kind of make her death more quote-unquote meaningful later in the movie. And yes, spoiler alert, 5 out of 6 of these girls are going to die. It's pretty easy to guess which of the 5 are going to die. None of the ones that didn't wave at Preston.
Hello, editing big man here. So the next sequence of events I'll be talking about, I have in reverse. It's only 2 of them, so I didn't bother re-recording, but my points with both still strongly stand, and I feel like it doesn't affect the review overall. Just wanted to clarify that, and that's about it, so you can get back to the review. So Preston then heads back into the cabin, hangs out a while, and then hears a loud thud. It's later in the day, and he heads out to investigate and grabs a pair of binoculars. And the first thing Preston does, starts perving on these girls through the window. That's the most important thing about this film. A lot of it is spent with Preston perving on these girls through a pair of binoculars for no reason at all than just to do it. Because he'll go out to investigate something, and then his first focus will be to look in the windows for these girls. Literally one of the first places he looks in is the bathroom. Not like at the living room or a bedroom or just like the front door or somewhere around that area. He watches the girls in the bathroom. And that's so insanely creepy. But that is going to be the most important thing about this film, is that a lot of the action is seen through Preston's eyes perving on these girls. So he then begins to investigate some more, moves his perv ass away from the girls, and noticed that a telephone pole fell over and is in the middle of the road. Then Preston moves back over to the girls, and then we get the cliched, "Oh, I have no signal," from the girl who, from the opening, has spent most of her time on her phone.
What are you doing?
I'm calling Bart.
Why don't you use the phone inside?
I can't. It doesn't work.
Yes, it does. I called my mom when we got here.
Well, seriously, it's not working out. I'm getting shitty reception inside on my cell phone.
So she tells them, "I have no signal. I can't call my boyfriend." And they're like, "That makes no sense. We just had a signal." "Well, I don't have it now." So the film is kind of implying that because the telephone pole came down, nobody can get a signal or reach anyone outside of this general area that they are in right now. That is a really important detail that I'm going to be pointing out again later in the film. The girl then goes wandering off to look for a signal. Preston moves away, and he turns back over and sees that the girl is gone and that her phone is just in the middle of the road. He freaks out, and he tries to shout to one of the girls to get help. One of them opens the windows and does the obviously normal, sane person thing to do.
What are you looking at, you perv?
Because the dude is staring at them through the windows with his fucking binoculars. But we are supposed to act like she is in the wrong for calling him a perv. And he does nothing to indicate to her, "Wait, no, I want to tell you something," until after she's closed the window. But she also doesn't go and tell her friends, "Hey, be careful," and close all the window blinds. This dude is perving on us with a pair of binoculars. Preston, in a panic, trying to figure out a way to help this girl who he believes has been taken. He runs over and he tries to email the police. That's right. He tries to email the police. When the film, just a few minutes prior, indicated that they have no signal and can't reach anyone outside of where they are. And a telephone pole has just crashed, and during the period of time this film was made, internet was very reliant on telephone wires. So, how the fuck does he have an internet connection so that he can email the fucking police. The film, literally just a few minutes ago, told us that they have no signal. That a cell phone cannot get any reception where they're at. But somehow Preston decides to send an email. What the fuck, movie? You literally went through the whole I have no signal cliche in horror movies and have the girl with the phone go wandering off so she could be kidnapped by the monster because she doesn't have a signal, and fucking Preston then decides to try and email someone when the telephone pole is down and the phones aren't working. How the fuck would the internet be working? It is the dumbest inconsistency. Why would you bother to establish this predicament that these characters are in, and then not even 5 minutes later in the movie go, fuck you, he can use the internet? It's so dumb. So then we are given a dumb, cheesy jump scare after the whole quote-unquote panic of what we've just gone through. So in normal Otis dickhead fashion, he treats Preston like an asshole for scaring him, when obviously he should be like, oh shit, I'm sorry man, I didn't mean to scare you. At least that's what a good person would do. He also sees Preston's email and acts like he's an insane person and says, what the hell are you doing? Slams it closed and wanders off into the kitchen and starts drinking milk with one of the most uncomfortable close-ups I probably will ever see in a movie. This scene here does present an interesting question to me, though. Why the fuck doesn't Otis mention the telephone pole right in the middle of the road? Like, he had to have gone by it on his way back. It just feels weird not to mention the existence of the telephone pole. I mean, I get that we just saw it, but it could be like a line where Otis is like, hey, Preston, did you see the telephone pole in the middle of the road? Like, have the character acknowledge that something is going on. It also doesn't make sense to me that he's treating Preston like a crazy person for what's written on his email. I mean, if I saw something like that, I'd think, oh shit, did this girl get grabbed by a bear or something? Like, the area they're in is gonna be filled with wild animals. Possibly mountain lions, wolves, cougars, whatever lives in the general area. I mean, we had a scene in the beginning establish that bears and coyotes are around, and if she's hit by a pack or she's caught off guard, I'm sure something like that could drag her off into the woods. So why is he being a dick about this? It might just be a minute nitpick, but it just bothers me that he wouldn't take the idea of a girl being grabbed by a wild animal serious. Honestly, though, the most annoying thing about this scene is that it opens with a wholly unnecessary jump scare. It's such a big pet peeve of mine that exists in bad horror movies, where they have to have the jump scare, but they don't know when to implement them, so they just throw them whenever they can in the movie. It's just pointless, and it takes away any tension you should feel in this film, especially in this sort of isolated situation they're trying to set the main character up in. It only exists for us to go, ooh, that was scary. I'm glad that's over with. Whew, I need a breather from that. That was intense. Hooey. Now at this point, my favorite scene of the movie begins. We are reintroduced to the characters Billy and the gas station clerk and find out they're kind of in this group of friends. And we're introduced to one other character by the name of Ziegler. Now we learn that all three of them are out there to basically hunt down the Sasquatch. Billy having sort of seen it and is basically intent on killing it because it killed his horse and his dog. The clerk is just kind of there because he's knowledgeable about Sasquatches and he believes he could be of some help, although he literally is more just there as comedic relief to the scene. And Ziegler just loves killing shit. It's literally the best line in the movie.
What the hell are you doing here?
I like to kill shit.
That's what I figured.
Ziegler is reasonably skeptic to the existence of Sasquatches and stuff like that, and he just believes it's some big bear, and he's just looking forward to getting a big trophy on his wall. Ziegler decides to do a quick trek through the woods to kind of check for any tracks or see if, he can find the thing and bait him towards this group. And while he's doing that, he sees a cave and he hears some noise coming from it. Stock monster noises. And so he goes in there to investigate, and he finds the missing girl. Her stomach is ripped open, which looks kind of goofy. It's just like like they threw some meat and like fake blood on her chest, and like, oh my god, it's ripped open. And she is begging Ziegler to help her and get her out of there. And Ziegler's like, nope, fuck this. I want nothing to do with this. Basically confirming that he is a dick. And he's like, I'll come back for you, don't worry. And the girl is dragged off somewhere deep into the cave, and Ziegler runs off, returns to the group, and the most amazing moment of the movie begins.
It's coming.
Wow. 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 So you guys are so into yourselves, like you are so committed to censoring innocent people that you're just gonna go and try to get my Patreon deleted now.
Take that, cocksucker!
Once that epic shootout ends, everyone just fucking dies. One by one. And the clerk is freaking out, and he basically bumps into the Sasquatch and tries to reason with it. And this is when we kind of get the first reveal of the Sasquatch's face.
Right!
Now, I'll be getting a bit more into the Squatch a little later in the review, but when I first saw this scene, I just thought it was some stock video they got online of like a monster biting into someone, and that we were never going to actually see the Sasquatch. But boy was I wrong. But I'll save that for a little later in the review because it is kind of comedy gold. I started to notice my first time watching the movie how frequently we were getting close-ups of characters. I think we get a close-up of almost every character in the movie, except for 4 out of 5 of the girls who are in the cabin across from Preston's. And there's kind of a 50-50 split with this film. Half the time they really work out and they kind of convey a nice mood, and the other half of the time they feel really out of place. Like when we're with Preston, who is basically trapped in his cabin and in his wheelchair and in a sense in his own body, they kind of work the intense close-ups. We get a feeling of claustrophobia. We feel kind of stuck like he does. It's a nice little detail I feel like really works in the film's favor. But then when we're with other characters and we're getting constant close-ups of them and they're at separate locations from the cabin, then it starts to get a little like, okay, maybe back the camera up a bit. We don't need to be that close to their face. For example, with the last scene we just talked about, there were an insane amount of close-ups, and it kind of adds a level of hilarity to the film, because then you're just really close up pressed into this person's face while they're giving some of the cheesiest line delivery you'll probably ever hear. If beforehand we don't get any real close-ups of the characters until after Ziegler finds the girl in the cave and returns, and we start getting close-ups of them, kind of creating the sense like, oh shit, they're trapped here? And then that would have been a really clever use of cinematography and conveyed an interesting idea that every time we are dealing with a close-up, a character is trapped. They're basically done for. But we don't get that. It's just every character, we get a really intense detail look at their face and we can count how many pores they have. And it kind of ruins that feeling I got with Preston and turns it from, oh, that's actually really clever for this movie, to, oh, this is actually really funny. They just really like close-ups. So now we're back with Preston, who is still pretty visibly concerned about the missing girl. So he comes up with the kind of genius idea to go to the computer and do the most obvious thing you would do in this situation.
Of course, that's it. Come on, come on.
No, I'm just kidding. He goes to the white pages and tries to remember the girl's name because I feel like she's the only other one's name who was mentioned in the film. He tries to remember the girl's name because he heard it earlier in a conversation when he was perving on the girls. And while on the white pages, he's assuming that by putting in her name, he'll be able to get her cell phone number. And now, I decided to try this out myself by putting in my own name, and when I went to the white pages, it required me to pay to use it. So I don't know how accurate this is, especially with how many results you would probably get, but he remembers that her name is Karen Herdberger. So he gets to the white pages, types in her name, gets her number, and sends a text to her phone, which again brings more attention to the fact that earlier in the film they literally had a no signal moment, and I'm still confused as to how he has the internet and how he's able to send a text to a phone that was having trouble getting a signal. But anyway, the group of girls all go outside to investigate because obviously they are growing concerned for their friend. They find the phone and read the text, which basically is like, your friend got grabbed by a creature, and they all start freaking out. They all start heading back in, and Preston is still perving on these girls. We also get a POV shot from the Sasquatch, who is also perving on the girls. And the scene kind of just ends there with them heading back into the building. So then Preston is sitting at his computer and he's watching a video about Bigfoots. And these two characters are basically having a debate about whether or not Bigfoot exists.
It's entirely possible for a bear to have wandered down close to civilization looking for food.
No, I don't believe this is a bear. Bears don't normally grow to over 12 feet. But whatever it is, if it's come once for food into populated areas, it will come again.
So you really think this is some kind of Bigfoot we've got roaming in these woods?
Bigfoot? No, this is not Bigfoot. This is bigger than Bigfoot. And meaner. This is more like the abominable snowman of the Himalayas. Vicious, dangerous.
That's right, boys! It's not a Squatch! It's a Yeti! Has anyone seen my family? Oh my god! Where's my family? Please come back to me! God, you're making me clap against my will! I don't even understand what's going on here! Somebody help me! Yes! I'm so confused right now. I kind of find this whole scene funny because they didn't want to be a by-the-numbers Sasquatch movie, so they decided to go with Yeti. But Yetis are usually in the cold tundra, and instead of, doing a snowy mountain, like a ski trip or whatever, they probably just thought it would be cheaper to go up during, like, the summertime or whatever, and hang out in some cabins that, to be fair, I think the director's family probably owned. And soon we will see the full glory and carnage of the abominable snowman, the Yeti of Flatwoods, in its full glory next time.